Now that the 5.0 livestream is a few days away, time to speculate, or more like hopeful wishing, for things I hope we get in Natlan. This video will be split into 2 parts. All the things that I want to see in Natlan, and a little refresher on all the things we got in Fontaine. It was supposed to be 2 separate videos, but they were both too short on their own, so I will combine them into one. Let's start with the quality of life that I would love to see in Natlan. Number 1. Event quest logs. Genshin has had a lot of events over the years. Most of them have really heavy lore, and it's a shame a good portion of the fanbase will never get to experience them. They can reintroduce them as quests you can do on your own, with or without the rewards. The only 2 weapons I may like is like Albedo's sword and Klee's catalyst, but I have no intentions on wishing for them anytime soon, so I generally couldn't care less if they just didn't give us the rewards. I just want to be able to do the Unreconciled Stars and Albedo's first event quest again. I missed out on those, and I would really like to be able to do them. They can give it its own section, like how we have a section for hangouts and story quests. Just make one for event quests and allow us to unlock them the same way we unlock hangouts and story quests. And for anyone who has finished it beforehand, it can just be automatically completed for them. There's this thing in Hoyo Lab that keeps a record of all the events you've done, so they obviously have the information. They can just use that to implement the system into the game. If you say that it will take up too much space, make them downloadable. Then when you're done, you can delete them so they won't take up space on your devices. Next, build loadouts for the Traveler. I have been making builds for all the Traveler's current elements, and I have to put the builds on random characters because the idea of having to find the artifacts every time I switch elements sounds insufferable. While it's not a perfect solution, it's the best we can do since Hoyo won't give us loadouts. Speaking of loadouts, actual artifact loadouts would fix this problem. I feel like when they do decide to give us artifact loadouts, they're going to limit it to like something like 5. Please at least be 10. 5 doesn't even cover all the Traveler's elements, or they could do both. Specific loadouts for the Traveler, so that when you switch elements, it also switches the artifacts and weapons you had on them when you were using that element. And actual artifact loadouts for every other character, since, most characters only have one build anyways. Next, decrease resin refresh rate or increase the amount of condensed resin we can make every day. They increased the resin cap from 160 to 200, but now it takes a little over 26 hours to cap, which means even if you finish all your resin at the same time every single day, it will never cap. And while that is good for managing your resin, it would be better if they reduce the regen time to 6 minutes. That way it would only take 20 hours to cap rather than the over 26 hours. On the topic of resin, I want to be able to make more than 5 condensed resin every day. Make it 10 or something. That way you can save up 2 days worth of resin just to use all at once. And that's like 3 days worth of less than 20-second dailies, so it's convenient. I don't think it would affect the game too much, it's just a convenience thing. Next, optimize the Imagining Theater. The Imagining Theater is a good step forward for extra endgame. It does have a few issues though, which they have acknowledged that they're working on. Some of the things I would like to see improve with the Imagining Theater is I would prefer if when you finish an act, it gives you the option to just continue rather than having to go back to the lobby. They can keep the option to return to the lobby, but also add next act or continue there as well. So if someone wanted to leave, they can, and if you wanted to continue, you don't have to go back to the lobby. Also, try to make the elements actually playable. Imagine we got something like Dendro, Cryo, and Geo. None of those elements work well together, or work together at all. So I'm hoping they're not just randomizing the elements every reset. That would be quite an inconvenience later on. Next, less RNG, more choices. Less RNG in a gacha game is a pretty funny thing to ask, but anyways, by less RNG, I mean when it comes to the weekly boss materials that you can get. Either 1, let us choose the only one we want for that week, or 2, let us choose which one we want to have a higher chance of getting. It reduces the amount of time you need to spend on building characters and less frustrations. Second, another thing that has to do with RNG is the artifacts. Give us an option to choose either the main stat or at least one of the sub stats. If they ever do this, it's probably going to be like Honkai Star Rail, where it's given at such a small pace and amount that it sometimes doesn't even feel like it exists. But I hope they don't do that and at least make it not as bad as Honkai Star Rail's rate is. Last RNG related one, and the one that has the least amount of chance of ever happening, either give us the option to pick the 4-star we want or the one we want to have a higher chance of getting. And while we're on the topic of banners, they need to rerun 4-star characters more consistently. Xiangling does not need to be shoehorned into every single banner. Like, give her and us a break. Rerun the newer ones more often as well. Chevrolet hasn't had a rerun yet, and neither has Charlotte, I believe. And not to mention, the ones that haven't had a rerun in probably half a year. When it comes to rerunning 4-stars, I would I would argue it's sometimes even worse than the 5 stars, because they have literally 3 slots to put a 4-star, and they somehow almost always manage to rerun the same three characters: Xiangling, Razor, Genpei, or Bennett. Xiangling, Razor, Bennett. Xiangling, Razor, Bennett. Can we let them go? Can you rerun someone else, please? When everyone was like complaining that they wanted Kave, I wanted Chevres. Please, where is she? Oh my god. I didn't get her when she was released, and I still don't have her. Anyways, last but not least, here are some small rapid fire ones. Increase adventure level to increase the boss drop rates, difficulty, and give people more things to work towards rather than beating the endgame. Being able to collect rewards in the Abyss without having to leave first. This also applies to the Imaginative Theater. More gliders, just more cosmetics in general. They can use the Imaginative Theater as a way to claim more cosmetics for progressing through the acts. Draggable pins. Trying to pin something when it's just a bit too close to the waypoint is just slightly annoying, so if we can just drag them to place, that would be better. Pity counter on the banner, a Primogem count when you click on Primogems, a skip button for all quests, and co-op optimization in general. There's just so much we should be able to do so much more with co-op, and yet we're very limited on the things that we can do, so, improve the co-op system. That's basically all the quality of life I would like to see in Natlan. You can tell me what stuff you would like to see down in the comment section below. Next, here are all the quality of life we got in Fontaine, all the improvements we got in Fontaine. Each quality of life will be organized into 5 categories. General quality of life, which are just things that make the game easier in general, exploration, gameplay, story, and others, for the ones that don't fit anywhere else. General optimization is what we have the most of, such as a claim all button for expedition dispatch, camera optimizations. They made refining weapons easier now. You can just do it all at once instead of one by one before. Optimize leveling up characters by adding an auto add feature. I feel like they should also add an overflow feature so we don't lose so much XP. Optimize leveling up artifacts by being able to raise up to the next stat increase, a hide UI option that isn't just limited for during dialogue, an easier daily system that doesn't punish exploration. It basically made Genshin's 5 to 10 minute daily system into a less than a minute daily system as long as you have stockpiled encounter points from exploring and doing quests. Only thing you need to do to activate it is spending your resin. I think 120, one of the best things they've added with this update. They optimize the trial domains so you don't have to leave every time to do the next one. Now you can also obtain iron chunks from the expeditions, which out of all these things feels like the one that should have just been there from the get-go. When it comes to exploration quality of life, however, they added an underground map. The underground map was a nice change to the map itself, as it made it easier to explore places like Sumeru and its numerous caves. They increased the amount of map pins. They made gliding faster using a gadget. I don't know if it's actually faster, but it's supposed to be. I have not tried it out. A treasure compass optimization. Now it shows you where the chest is on the map itself and if it's underground or not, which makes it easier instead of it just pointing into a mountain and you have to guess where it is. Gameplay wise, we got an increased resin. They increased the resin to 200. The boss load time decreased from 2 minutes to 10 seconds. Just teleport out of the boss area and back in, and it should be back, or use the trial domain. They added a quick loadouts feature that you can customize, a training guide to help you build your characters by showing you locations of materials, best in slot weapons and artifacts based on what the community is using. So sometimes it can be a little wrong. Now we can now change character builds in the Abyss and drag them around. Artifact optimization organization system, though the system does seem to make things a lot more complicated if you don't know how to use it. New endgame content with acknowledgement from the developers that it could be improved and that they're working on making it better. Story-wise, quality of life, we got the new reading log. So if you accidentally double click on a dialogue, you can just click on that on the read log and you know what you missed. Story quest confirmation button, that way you can use your keys without having a backlog of quests on your to-do list. I wish there was a way that you can remove a quest from your to-do list and it just goes back into the story quest area. And we got a skip button for hangout quests, specifically only the parts you've gone through before, and a focus feature for when you're doing certain quests and you don't want other quests to interrupt it. Last but not least, the others section. There's only one thing here. Serenity part optimization. They just made making sets easier and increased the amount of furniture you can make from 5 to 10. I hope they increase the limit that we have, the load limit that we have on the Serenity teapot, because it kind of hinders creativity at times. I know people are still very creative with it, that people have learned to work around it. Those are all the things we got in Fontaine. I may have missed a few things, but I believe that's everything. In conclusion, while there were things I wanted that we didn't get, like a skip button, increased adventure rank, and permanent events, so on and so forth, I wouldn't say what we got instead was necessarily bad. By some accounts, the quality of life we ended up getting are much better than the ones I wanted. Except the quick load system, I would definitely trade that for actual artifact loadouts and an event quest backlog. Credit where credit is due. They did a better job giving us quality of life updates during the Fontaine patch than any other region combined. And hopefully the same can be said about Natlan. I hope we get most, if not all, the things I mentioned. Can't wait to see what they have in store for Natlan. Tell me what you're most excited about in Natlan. I've said that 3 times now in the comment section below. That is all I have for today. Subscribe. See you whenever.